He's gonna die. He's gonna fight me. He's something like me. He thinks he's awesome.
Hey everybody, this is me, Undead Viking. I want to talk to you about this game today. It's called Siege of Verdan. This is a game that is made by a friend of mine. His name is Patrick, who runs a excellent video review series for board games called Just Got Played. I invite you to check that out, which always makes me wonder, or really gets me a little bit worried about the fact that, like, hey, I'm a video reviewer. Would you like to check out this game? And I'm like, oh, okay. What if it's horrible? But thankfully, this game is awesome, so I don't have to worry about that. This game is a very it's a rules light war game that has a lot of hidden depth. When I opened it up and I looked at it for the very first time, I had this wonderful feeling of nostalgia, if you will, and I knew I was going to enjoy it. And once I got 3, 4, 5 of my friends over and we set the game up and we played, we had an absolute blast. And I've since played it several more times, and it's continued to give me that reward of an enjoyable, wonderful experience with my friends as we beat the holy crap out of each other over the course of an hour or so. So why don't I show you how to play Siege of Verdan, and then we'll come back here and I'll talk more about why I've had a lot of fun playing it. Alright, cool. Alright, this is the Siege of Verdan, and just to kind of show you how the game is played, I have set up a 4-player game, and I've actually kind of moved into the setup of the game, but I just wanted to get this so you can kind of see my cool little resin pieces that I have for the different like units that you are going to be moving around the board. Now, the cool thing about this is that this is actually a handmade copy that the designer sent me, as far as the copy that you might get through the Kickstarter, it might not look like this, but just keep in mind that this is still kind of a prototype, so the final production of the game might look different from what you are seeing in front of you. Alright, so as you can probably guess, if you are an old school gamer, you're probably going to think Risk as soon as you see this board, and that's not completely off base, because I do have a lot of old school gaming feelings when I first opened this and took a look at it, and that's a good thing. I mean, it kind of took me back to when I was younger, and I'd have my buddies over on the weekend when I was a teenager in high school, and we'd play games like Risk or Diplomacy, or I can't even think of the other games, like Supremacy, things like that. World control type games, and so I like the feel. I like to look at this as soon as I cracked it open, but. Regardless, each one of these little different shades is like a different country, a different location on the board. Now, you can play with up to 6 people, and so like I said, I've only got like the 4-player game, but so you can actually get the board even more congested if you have more people on there. Each one of these different countries have like a little provinces, and each one of those little provinces has a number on it, and those are the resources. Those are going to be available to you when you start the game start the turn in control of that particular location. Now, obviously, you have control over one spot at the beginning of the game. At the beginning of the game, you actually are going to be picking a ruler. You have all these different rulers, and you roll the dice to figure out whoever the first player is, and whoever is going to be the last player. So the person to the first player's right will go through these different ruler cards, and they'll pick one, and they'll hand the cards over, and then they'll slowly but surely they'll pick a card. Now, different cards have different abilities. Field generals, it's like if you control a country, gain +2 to your resources, like that's controlling the whole thing. All heavy infantry and heavy cavalry you control are +1 combat value, so they'll be better. So like if you go to field commander, it says if you control a country, gain +1 to your resources, and then all infantry you control gain +1 combat value. So you can see, like, there's different abilities, and there's even, like, merchant guildsmen. So, like, if with merchants, if you control a country, you gain +2 resources, and then all merchants you control are +1 combat value. There's even some named people in here as far as leaders go, and my understanding is that the Kickstarter will have more of those available as well. So, the backs of these cards have maintenance cost, movement value, and initial cost. That's what those 3 things are. The reason why these are on the back is every ruler that isn't chosen is going to be put into the giant stack of cards that people are going to be drawing from for more units as you play the game. And because of the fact that you actually use these little boards here as the Fog of War implementation, you will place, as you place units, you'll place them into these locations like so. So you can see them on this side, but your opponents are going to see that. And that basically is so like you can't cheat. You can't say, oh, this guy can move 7, you know, or like you can lie about the initial cost to actually place them on the board. And so it's like I like that, and as far as like, I mean, I have these, but I know like there's also like a player mat version of it as well. If you that some of the Kickstarter will come with. But anyway, so you pick a ruler, and then everybody is going to get a capital city, and the capital city is just it's kind of a unit, but it just sits there. It doesn't do anything. And then the capital city actually has two sides. Like the normal side is like the capital city has a combat value of 3, and then if it becomes under siege, it has this side, and then the combat value actually decreases. And so if you lose your capital city, depending on the type of game you're playing, you will lose the game. This game does have player elimination. You can play the game without player elimination, or you can play the game in what's called a skirmish, and all of those are like different versions. I just briefly might as well just, since I touched on that, I might as well say, so player elimination, whoever is the last person left will win the game. Pretty straightforward. Just it's an all-out slaughter. If you are playing if you're playing a situation where there's no player elimination, you just have a situation where the game will progress on this track down here, and then when the game is over, then you'll determine a winner. If you have a skirmish situation, what it is that the first time somebody loses their capital city, the game is over, and whoever accomplished that by taking the other capital city will win the game at that point. So, just those are the 3 different versions. I might as well just touch on those really briefly. So, this is one of those simple but deep games. It doesn't have a ton of really confusing rules. It does have rules to it. It has, it has like a fair amount of complexity. But once you play one round of it, you're going to understand the game. You're going to be able to follow along exactly what you have to do. As a matter of fact, right on the board here, it just has your turn order right there, and lets you know the entire process of what's going on. They also, helpfully, up here, actually list off the different countries, the different groups, and they actually say the full amount of resources that if you controlled every single spot in there, it would be worth. So at the beginning of the game, what happens is that you pick that ruler, you get your capital city, and then in reverse order, like from the last player to first, they're going to pick a spot on the board to place both your ruler and your capital city, and you place those on there like so. These are really cool resin pieces that the designer of the game created, handmade, that I have with my copy. My understanding is that not all are going to come with these resin pieces. You're going to have like just counters as well. So, but I just have these, and that's what I'm going to be able to show you. As you place units on the board, what you'll be doing is you'll be placing cards in these locations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you'll be placing those units on the board like so. As and as you control more area, you're able to put units on the places that you control. And so this is once again that fog of war. They don't know exactly what the units are as far as what when they're placed on the board until they are interacted with in some way. Now, I've taken more than a few just sample cards out of the deck just so I can kind of show you some of the things that they can do. But one of the big things in there is you have to pay attention to this little icon here, and that is called like a flag bearer card. Flag bearers are the only types of cards that can actually take over a spot. If this was my military unit, let me find my 1 here. If I had this cavalry and I was playing the white here, and I went like that, and I had this, and I moved him into a location, I would then take over that location, and I would put my control marker in that spot to show that I control that. If I moved into a spot that was controlled by somebody else and was completely open, I'd move in and I could switch that out for my own control marker, like so. And so like obviously if I move there, I'd actually control that as well. I should probably put that. So you would take that over. Now, there is what's called control, like the characters that have like these explorers that have this little icon here that have a halvesies kind of thing. What explorers do, and other units that have this marker on it, they are a limited flag bearer. So what they can do, if this was my flag bearer right there, and I had this too, when they move to a spot that isn't controlled by somebody else, they can take it over, like so. But if this was controlled in Hueso and I moved in there, I couldn't take that over with that particular card. So, and you can see on the back here, you can actually have that information as well. It still has the movement value, the initial cost, the maintenance cost, but it has, like, if it's a limited flag bearer, it has that on there. And, the flag bearer carrier or whatever has that on the back as well. Now, as you might guess, if two opposing units meet in a spot, they could possibly interact and fight. You don't have to fight if you end up in the same spot as somebody. You might be working with somebody. This is a game of the game beyond the game, as I say. There's rules beyond the rules as far as having discussions with people and saying, hey, don't attack me, don't do this, don't do that other thing. But also, you can force some of those things to happen by having these diplomats. Like, here's the emissary of peace. So, it even says here, the emissary piece cannot be attacked by a military unit. So if somebody wants to attack this, they wouldn't be able to do so. And then, it has a negotiation ability. And the emissary piece occupies an opponent's capital. Neither player may attack each other with military units or remove each other's control tokens from play. So if you could move that into that location, you could then force a kind of a treaty between you and somebody else. Now, that might kind of stink if you're the person that has that treaty. However, you do have recourse in the situation because you can have... here, let me find my assassin card. So if you have an assassin, the assassins, you'll notice they have no flag carrying ability. They have combat value, but assassins can only be attacked by a spy, a ruler, or assassin. And if assassin attacks an individual, it gains +3 to its combat value. So that emissary of peace, if you had this situation, you'd move on to that spot. And you could probably kill them and take them out, and so that would prevent that from happening. Some of these things, like a merchant tradesman, same kind of deal. They can negotiate, but they also have the state controlled by. If you move a merchant tradesman, occupies a state controlled by an opponent, that player, the other player, gains +1 resource points. But when you gain +3 resource points during a resource claim phase, so you the merchant helps out somebody else a little bit, but also helps you out a little bit more. Some units are military units that are boats, and so you can. This is like and as you can probably guess, it says relentless pirates may only travel on water. Now you might notice that these locations like here, these little ports. Now, the ports aren't a space by themselves. They're kind of just like a doorway into that location. If you have a ship and it's on that spot, they're considered to be in that location, and they could attack opponents that are in that spot or be attacked by opponents that move into that location as well. Obviously, if you have if you're in these if you choose to start in an island, you would either need a boat or your explorers actually have the ability to move on the water as well. Kind of like a throwback, if you will, to Civilization, with the explorer units that can move by. I don't know if that's on purpose. That's what I thought of when I thought of the game. Anyway, so also, ships have the ability to carry troops as well, and that will be denoted on your ships by this little icon here that will let you know how many units they can particularly carry. And so, units like infantry and cavalry that normally couldn't move across water, you could use a ship to move as well. Pretty straightforward. It's not brain surgery here. It's like if you've played a lighter war game, you should be very familiar with that process. So, at the very beginning of your turn, what you will do is you totally empty your resource pool. Now, you may still have resources that are that you didn't use your turn before, but the reason why you keep those and then you lose them at the beginning of your turn is because you can actually then use your resources in negotiations with other players. So you could then, if you and another player are teaming up to fight somebody else, you don't use up all your resources you gain at the beginning of your turn, you have 4 or 5 left, you then give those resources to the other player if you're negotiating and say, okay, now you can use those to place units or pay your maintenance or what have you. So you collect resources depending on the spots you control, and then you just have those there, and then you would then pay whatever maintenance cost you have for your units that you have already deployed. Now, if you can't pay for them, obviously then you lose them and they go to the bottom of the deck, like so. If you If you choose not to pay for them for any reason, you can then do the exact same thing. I'm not going to pay for this one. You don't pay the maintenance cost. You're rid of it. If you have a unit that has a zero maintenance cost, this is when you could get rid of that as well. You say, I'm not paying for this, even though there is no payment. You just ditch it at that point. So then, if you have any cards in your hand you wish to play, you will then play those cards out in front of you, and show the initial cost, if you will. Now, if you have a ruler card, that you drew, because remember you put any rulers that aren't taken, that are put into the giant deck of cards. If you draw another ruler and you want to use like the unique ability that it has, like all infantry units you gain a +1 CD, you have to turn that around and place it on your board like that, so everybody can see that you have the ruler. You can't just say, yeah, I have a ruler that gives me plus combat value. You have to actually show that you have that ability when you do that. But other than that, unless for whatever reason you want to tell somebody else what other units you have, you then face those units towards you so nobody else can see it, or on a player mat you put it face down so they can't see that, and then that is your information, like I said, until they are interacted with by some way, either by a scout or an attack or what have you. So like some of the other like things, like I mentioned, there's different soldiers for each area. So soldiers of Gundrake. So like that's that thing. You could get this and not control that area and have it in your hand, but maybe hopefully, like if you eventually took it over, you'd have that ability, the bonuses that it gives you. So like here's like the soldiers of Guerra. It's like if soldiers of Guerra occupy a state in the country of Guerra, it gains +1 combat value. If you control the country, soldiers of Guerra gain +2 movement. So they have extra abilities like that. You have things like raiders, like they aren't flag bearers, so they basically can only be used to like just attack and harry other players, but they gain +1 combat value in attacking. So if you've played games with cards that have variable powers that just break the rules, things like that, this is exactly what that is. Spies, like you are able to like infiltrate areas. Normally, if you move into a spot with another person's unit, if you will, you have to stop in that location. But scouts, spies, things like that, they're able to move through those areas because they're sneaky, pretty straightforward. Again, really straightforward. So all of this boils down to you move all your units around the board that you want to move. After you get done moving all your units, then if you are occupying the same location as another unit, you can choose at that point to attack. Now, at the beginning of the game, all the players decide if they're going to have a high luck game or a low luck game, and by doing that, you're basically deciding if you're going to do low luck, you're going to play with 4-sideds for combat. If you're playing high luck, you're going to play with 6-sideds. That's all the difference there. And then what happens is that when you declare an attack, you then just process the attack. So depending on the things, so if you have like this heavy infantry unit and you are attacking a spot that has this light infantry unit, it is pretty straightforward unless there's some other like rule or something that is changing things up. You're just going to compare the combat values, and so if this is the defender, it has a combat value of 2. This is a combat value of 4. So if you just roll in like in the classic, white is the defender, red is the attacker, you roll those 2 dice, attacker gets 6, 11, not even close, and then you would destroy the defender that's in that location. Now, here's the interesting thing about attacking and defending. This game is slanted towards defender. Oh, and I should mention that if you tie on the roll after everything's totaled together, you just keep re-rolling until you get a result. So, now, if you had a situation where you were attacking a location and there were 2 defenders and 1 attacker, normally when the attacker says, I'm attacking this location, like and every occasion except like if you have a situation with an assassin who picks the attack, what happens is that the heavy infantry attacks and attacks 2 people. These 2 people can gang up and defend together, and they would add their scores together. So then it would be an even battle because both of these have a combat value of 3 and a 2, so that's a 5. So then you roll these 2 together, see what happens. I'd still lose if I was the defender. But you can combine those. And then, but the thing is that not both of them are destroyed. So then you would say, okay, this one's destroyed, and now I can defend again with my last one. And hopefully, maybe we can pull off a win here. Almost. I got a 5 to a 6. So I mean, they had a shot, but then so that's how the defense works. If you have a situation where you have like one defender, let's say that's the defender, and you have more than one attacker. So let me just throw another attacker down on there, like so. You could attack with both of these, but you can't gang up on the defender. You'd say I'm attacking, and then the defenders can say, like you choose who's attacking the defender, then has to defend against both attacks. So and so then if they if it defeated one, then you could attack with the next one that is up. You can't have more than one attacker attacking one defender. So that's the whole process of leaning it towards the defender. All right, so that's how combat works. Combat's very quick. It's very brutal. It's very bloody. And then you lose those cards and you can put them down as they're destroyed. Now, after all the attacks are done, you get to draw one card from the giant deck. If you have any resources left over, you can draw another card for every 6 resources you expend to draw another card. And then if you end up with more than 7 cards, you can have a 7-card hand. You have to discard down to 8. Now, I should have mentioned, I just realized I mentioned, at the beginning of the game, you are dealt 7 cards. You have an opening hand. And there are different ways you can handle it, too. So, like, if you want to have a better idea, like, you can deal out 10 cards and people discard 3, and then you reshuffle the deck kind of thing. So you can definitely, monkey with that, if you will. I mean, we've even tried doing a card drafting type of situation as well, and that worked really well, too. So there's multiple ways you can do setup as far as this game is concerned. Now, the one last thing is I mentioned this little counter as it goes up. You probably can't read it, but in each one of these little locations, there's this text. And on the text, it actually says things like resources +2, draw +2, or resources +1, draw +1, capital city combat value +1. Now, as this goes on here, this isn't something that everybody gains from each turn that passes. What happens is if you actually are able to take over a capital city in that spot, you take one of your little control markers and you put it on that location, and then normally this goes up 1 each turn, but in a player elimination game, after one person's eliminated, it starts going up 2 instead. But on every turn, if you've taken over capital city, this denotes the extra bonus that you'll get at the beginning of each turn, and you keep that for the rest of the game. It should be mentioned in the no player elimination version of the game, this token will go up 2 spaces each turn anyway, just so the game moves forward and it finishes up. Otherwise, the game probably could last too long, if you will. And it also gives you a sense of wonderful urgency as well, that you just can't sit in your laurels. This isn't a game where you can just sit there and turtle and just hope things work well. You need to get out there and move out because of the fact that there is an actual definitive end to the game, if you will. So there you go. That is Siege of Verdan. I mean, it's as far as like I said, there's this giant deck of units and ships and merchants and tradesmen and spies and assassins, and not just one assassin. There's different types of assassins, and there's different here's a cutthroat assassin, which has slightly different abilities. So there's multiple different kinds of units. There's multiple different types of each type of diplomat or spy or whatever. And the fog of war is an excellent portion of the game because you never really know. I mean, you can have an idea because as you play the game, you're going to get used to when somebody shows you, oh, I think I might know what that is. But there's enough of the cards available that you never can be 100% sure what exactly you're going to be dealing with until you actually, like I said, interact with those units and reveal what they are. So if you're looking for a multiple player negotiation, backstabbing, light war game throwback game, you really can't do much better than this one. So let me talk more about Siege of Verdan in my conclusion. All right, thank you very much for taking the time to sit through the rules portion of the game, if you will. Like I said, when I explained the game, it has that very, very straightforward rule set. It also, as I said, has a very deep gameplay, but not very complex, if you will, which, you know, is kind of, seems to like combat each other as far as adjectives go. But no, I mean, I have revisited many games where that have proven to me over and over again. You can have very deep gameplay, but without having like 1,000 different little tiny rules that you have to keep constantly go back to and look up and research repeatedly to make sure that you're doing them correctly. And it's obvious that this is a work of love that Patrick has put together, and I can tell that he was an old school gamer. He's got to be an old school gamer because of the fact that, like, as I was playing this just reminded me, as I said, of those games that I played when I was younger. I didn't have garden games back when I was a young pup, if you will. You know, the games I played back then were brutal. They set the players against each other, and they made you like bash each other over the head with clubs, you know, until one person managed to figure out, you know, emerged bloody and bruised, but they emerged the victor nonetheless. Now, this game just has everything that I like about that type of game. It is a war game, but it isn't a war game, if that makes sense. This is an area control game that has light war game aspects. It has a wonderful fog of war mechanism as far as the cards sitting up, and it also has that whole process. Since you only have 6 of those cards available to you at any time, it has a limitation on the game as well. This isn't a game where you have, this is my, you know, 10,000 unit army that I'm going to just, you know, just avalanche you. I mean, no, I mean, if you put all of your army, yeah, you theoretically could move all of your units together as this like little unstoppable juggernaut, but the other players are just going to run around you, you know, and you're not going to have the diversity. You're not going to have the ability to like really move out and be successful in the game, because resources are king in this game. Obviously, you know, the units aren't cheap, and you need to maintain those resources. You need to maintain your ability to maintain your army if you're going to win. And so you can't just have like, you know, one spot guarded. You need to have multiple units, at the very least slowing the other players down. Sure, yes, they might get killed or they might get, you know, destroyed by your opponents, but you have them there to slow them down. And there's also cards, I should have mentioned this, but there are cards in the deck that are like building cards, which are fortresses that you can just, they, once they're placed, you know, it's still, you're using, you know, one of these pieces to mark it, but once you place it on there, it doesn't move. You know, it doesn't have legs. It isn't Baba Yaga's hut. But you know, it is a situation where, you know, like there you have this added defense of this, like this fortress that is going to prevent people from just, you know, running roughshod through you. And also, you know, if you place those in like a high resource area, you know, you can kind of, you know, dig in and make sure that you gain those, you know, precious extra resources every turn when they're on that spot. So, you know, there's all kinds of like things like that. There's merchant ports you can set up, and, you know, just like added venues and things. It isn't just a you know, bash each other slog of a game. There is like alternative strategies you can take, and also, like, you know, with the diplomacy abilities and like other things, there's a subterfuge aspect as well. So, you know, you throw all those things together and blend them up, and you have a wonderful game that is a wonderful change of pace from either you know, the soulless Euro, if you will, which I love. I love soulless Euros, but it's a wonderful change of pace from, you know, playing a garden game, a soulless Euro, and also it's a change of pace from like your more in-depth, like rules-heavy, you know, area control or war military type games as well. And this kind of is that weird kind of middle ground gap, if you will, that I think a lot of people might be missing on their game shelf, that they should have as an option for when they get their friends together to play the game. So there you go. That is Siege of Verdan, and the cool thing is that this is, like I said, a passion project. Patrick isn't like making thousands of copies of this. He's like got a very limited print run, and he's just doing this because this is something that he feels his game is special, and he just wants to publish it. He just wants to get out there. And I know the Kickstarter is already funded, and so this, you know, I'm not trying to be like that hard pressed salesman, if you will. But you know, if you want to guarantee yourself of having and owning a copy of this, you know, I don't think there's going to be, these are going to really hit the distribution after the fact. So I mean, this might be your shot to have a copy of Siege of Verdan and have it on your game shelf in the future. So there you go. If you have any questions about Siege of Verdan, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. As always, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, this is me, the Undead Viking, and I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye-bye.